y'all, just wanted to go over how to choose music for your next trip. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to listen to, but I will give some of my recs at the end. But I will try to guide you into how you can choose music for your own trips, or if you're tripping with a group, how to create a shared group trip playlist. Because we don't all have the same music tastes and preferences, and so it's not really like a one-size-fits-all thing. Whether to prepare a music playlist for a trip or not kind of depends on how big the trip will be. Like for lower doses or a mini dose, it's not really that important to prepare beforehand what music you're going to play, just because on lower doses it's so much easier to control what music to play. Like you have more physical coordination and memory to choose a song to play, or if a song comes up that you don't like very much or is giving bad vibes, you can easily skip it. For bigger trips, I'd recommend having a playlist prepared beforehand, because when you're tripping that hard, it's really hard to choose what songs to play, especially in a group trip. Like you might even have trouble typing in your password to your phone or computer to change a song if you want to. I mean, at that state, you might even just be like, what is a phone? So it's a lot easier to have that shit prepared beforehand, and if you can, like Spotify has the ability to download your playlist offline, so in case the internet craps out, you're all good, and ideally, you'd want to be playing your playlist without ads if possible, because those ads can be really freaking jarring when you just like listen to an emotional song and then an ad comes up. It'll make for a much smoother trip experience. And sometimes when you're tripping that hard, after the trip you might be like, I forgot what the fuck music was even playing. But if you have a playlist set beforehand, then after the trip, you can go and listen to that playlist again, and it'll be kind of like reliving the trip over again, and you might remember more feelings and thoughts that you had when listening to those songs. I usually end up listening to a trip playlist up to a week after the trip, just kind of reliving and solidifying that trip in my head. When building a playlist for a solo trip, it's a lot more freeing because you don't have to worry about things like, oh, well, the other people that I'm tripping with enjoy this Little Mermaid song that I chose because I associated with the nostalgia of my childhood. So what I like to do in like everyday normal sober life is that when I come across a song that I think would be good in a trip, I add it to a playlist. I usually call it like next trip or a new trip, so I remember to listen to it later when I'm tripping. Then when I'm for sure going to trip, I review the songs in that playlist beforehand, either adding or removing songs, and then the day after the trip, I will rename that playlist from new trip to like usually the date of my trip. When preparing music for a group trip, it kind of depends on how experienced you are. For me these days, I'm usually the most experienced when tripping in a group trip, so I will add songs that I know are pretty good and I think the people who are tripping for the first time will enjoy, even though maybe I've heard that song a million times before tripping and it's kind of old to me now. But when you're tripping with other people who are around the same experience level, I think it doesn't matter as much. But I don't think that you should be the only one deciding what music is going to be playing on a trip. Ideally, it should be a group effort, everyone contributing about the same amount, although I find that usually the most experienced person ends up adding more songs to fill up the playlist, just because the less experienced trippers don't really understand fully yet how great it is to listen to music on a trip, and so they won't like care as much about adding new music. But then after that trip, if you trip with them again, then they'll be a lot more excited to contribute songs to a shared playlist. So pretty much all my friends and I use Spotify, so we'll create a shared Spotify playlist that everyone can add songs to, and it's really important that this playlist can be accessed by everyone and not just living on one person's account, because it's really nice to look back on. I know me and my friends sometimes listen to a trip playlist like years in the future after a trip even. It's just really beautiful because you and your friends may have like similar taste in music, but not exactly. Like they may know songs and artists that you don't, and so when they add it to the shared trip playlist, you may discover songs and bands that you really love. Like some of my favorite songs now, I found out because my friends added it to the trip music playlist. Also, the trip playlist becomes a reflection of the different personalities and tastes of the individuals coming together as one in a group. Like if one person likes folk music, then the playlist might have a bit of a folk flavor to it. Or if one person likes classical music, you might be listening to Chopin as well. Or similar with rap or like jazz. I just find it really beautiful. Also, when I'm tripping with people who have no experience, I like to warn them to choose the music carefully. Like, Not everything can work, but I think most things can, but you still have to be careful. I think a lot of songs can sound good tripping and be meaningful. You know, the playlists they use in the like official psilocybin therapies have a lot of classical music or indigenous or ambient music, and I think that's all fine and good, but I think a lot of modern music sounds really good as well, or almost any genre really, sometimes in surprising ways. But I think some songs could be pushing it a bit. Songs that have really negative, depressing, or violent lyrics or tone, I would avoid. Or if the song has some strange or eerie noises, like one time in a trip group playlist, this song called 2 Weeks by FKA Twigs came up, and the beginning of it kind of sounds like evil laughter, and me and my group were just like, I think songs that are kind of melancholy and have a sad message, maybe like about missing someone, can be fine too, but you also want to balance it out with some more positive but not forced positivity music. That said, there are probably people who can handle the like scary music. I'd save that for your solo trip though. It might be risky in a group trip if someone is not about it. Some people say to avoid genres like screamo or hard rap, and I could kind of see why, but I don't want to be elitist about genres. So if you enjoy that kind of music, you know, maybe you would enjoy it on a trip too, and it would sound nice to you. Also, be mindful of who you're tripping with and how the music can affect your relationship. Like for instance, let's say I'm tripping with a platonic friend that I want to keep platonic. I will choose songs that don't have any sexual tension in them because I don't want to make it awkward during the trip. Or if you're tripping with someone, it's just friends with benefits, don't add songs in there with like I love you lyrics or romantic shit like that, because you know you don't want to give the other person the wrong impression as well that you chose that song, you know, if that's not how you really feel. But if you are tripping with a romantic partner, then those songs could intensify the feelings in a good way. TLDR, music is very impressionable, so beware. I like having a no skip rule for a song so someone's feelings wouldn't get hurt during a trip, and you know, in a trip those feelings could amplify. If it's a song that I put on though and someone really doesn't like it, I'm okay with skipping it. This happened one time during a group trip. I added the Titanic theme song to the group trip playlist because I knew one person really liked Titanic there, and I thought that he would appreciate it, but the second time around when we listened to that song, he did not want to go through Titanic theme song again, and so you know, we skipped it. But, you know, me as a more experienced one, I really wouldn't try to skip a song that someone else put on and they might be enjoying, unless I thought that it could really give the group some bad vibes. So for naming a shared trip playlist, I know it seems like such a minute detail, but I love this shit, so I'm gonna tell you my naming strategy. So if it's someone in the group's first time tripping, I usually name the playlist like X's first trip, or if it's like a group trip, and we have like a group nickname. For instance, one was called Uvu Trip because me and this particular group used to video chat on Uvu. Who remembers what Uvu is? Or, you know, for a similar experience level, I just throw in the date of the trip again. The idea of a shared music trip playlist is one that my ex showed me on my second trip, and I really enjoyed that method of playing a playlist that everyone in that trip has contributed to, and you like put it on shuffle, and then you just lay down and trip hella hard and let the music soak in. It's like my favorite way to trip. So should you listen to songs with lyrics? Well, in the official therapy trip playlist, I think they avoid lyrics because lyrics can be very impressionable. But personally, I really enjoy lyrics. They give me food for thought on the trip for me to mull over. The words take on new and significant meaning. Of course, sometimes you have to be careful not to attribute too much meaning to it. But going through the lyrics of songs helps me better understand myself and gives me insight and like connection to the artist or the lyricist who wrote the lyrics. And it's like consuming art. Lyrics are like poems, and it's beautiful to me. So personally, I'm pro lyrics. I think it's fine to listen to songs while tripping with lyrics, although again, not songs that are like too violent or scary or negative or self-destructive, because as we said, music can be very impressionable. Another bonus tip, if you're learning a new language or want to, add a song in that language to the playlist. Listening to songs in other languages while tripping just gives me so much appreciation for other languages and my desire to learn other languages so I can communicate to someone else who may have like totally different experiences from me, and I'm not just like trapped in my bubble where everyone speaks the same language as me. Like, I'm okay at French and I enjoy music with French lyrics, and so sometimes I'll listen to songs with French words and I'll be like, oh cool, I can still understand most or some of this. And right now I'm trying to learn Hindi, and one thing that really prompted me to commit to learning Hindi seriously was when I listened to this Bollywood song called Kahonaho. Does anyone know that song? So yeah, I listened to Kahonaho on a trip and I was like, damn, this is so beautiful, and like I knew the overall message of it, but I couldn't understand each line, and I was like, I need to learn Hindi for real. So yeah, listen to songs in other languages too. As for the length of the playlist, I like to have the playlist be half of the length of the trip. So for instance, Shrooms, it's like 6-hour trip. I have a 3-hour playlist. For Acid, 12-hour trip, 6-hour playlist. This is for a few reasons. One, when the playlist ends the first time, you can decide then, do I want to continue listening to music or do I want to do something else now? It's like a natural stopping point. But for me personally, when I'm tripping that hard, there's not much else that I can do. So I end up listening to the playlist more than once. But I enjoy this because I can then compare the same song at different points of the trip. For instance, if I listen to a song at the beginning of the trip when I wasn't tripping that hard, I can listen to it again at the peak and then I can get possibly more out of it. Or if I listen to a song at the peak and I don't remember much because I was tripping so hard, I can listen to it again on the come down and then remember more and get more out of the song again that way. But you can imagine this is like another layer of looping, and some people don't like that, so be mindful of that. But I enjoy these kinds of music loops. And if you want to make even greater loops, add songs to a trip playlist that you listened to on prior trips. Then you can sort of time travel back to how you felt when you listened to that song on prior trips to how you feel listening to it now. I think songs and music is just a great way to time travel. Questions you can ask yourself about choosing songs for your next trip are, what songs are nostalgic to you? Like, what are songs that might bring you back to your childhood? Is there a time back in the day that you want to relive? What songs remind you of that time so you can like think about it? What are songs that you really enjoy right now? But then again, sometimes the songs that I wouldn't expect, like I usually am not the one adding them to the shared playlist, it's someone else. Those are the songs that really make an impact on me. But if I'm choosing songs for myself, this is kind of like what I ask myself. So as for my personal preference for what songs to choose, as I said, I really like nostalgic songs. So like Linger by the Cranberries, or like nostalgic sounding songs like Sweet Disposition, or feelsy and cinematic songs like Lower Your Eyelids to the Sun by M83, or To Build a Home by a Cinematic Orchestra. I like songs that make me cry. It's very cathartic. And I, of course, like trippy sounding songs like LSD by A$AP Rocky or So High by Doja Cat. That was the first song I heard while tripping, so it's always going to have a special place in my heart. Also, Tame Impala, anything by Tame Impala almost. Tame Impala is like a classic, it's a staple, and definitely if we were going to trip together and it was your first time, there would be Tame Impala in there for sure. I like songs from my childhood, so like Disney songs, but there's one movie I liked as a child called The Prince of Egypt, and there's a song called Through Heaven's Eyes that I listened to while tripping as an adult, and I was like, holy shit, how does a song from a movie, like a biblical movie about Moses, resonate so much with me spiritually as an adult? Yeah, that's what I like. Okay, I hope this gave you some guidance on how to choose music for your next trip, especially safely, responsibly, and respectfully. Also, let me know what are your favorite songs to trip to in the comments, and probably I'll listen to them on my next trip because, you know, those are the songs that surprise me, as I said before. This is my album wall, and a lot of songs I listened to that I really enjoyed while tripping are from these albums, and so this wall is very meaningful to me. Alright, bye!